Well, hey there, and welcome to Wedding Planning Simplified. I'm Amy, a wedding planner and educator here in London, Ontario, and I'm here today with Jacqueline.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Nice to see you.
We are enjoying the cold weather. We're going to lean into it. We've got the festive bug has bitten us, and so we thought we would spend today talking about gifts, since that's probably something that is at the forefront of many of your minds.
True,
in this season.
True. I have I never like going to a mall on a Sunday to start with, but I have that in my future. And I'm hopeful. I know that none of these gifts are for a wedding, but maybe I can get some good gift ideas after we chat.
Tis the season. I just got back from the grocery store and it's pretty crazy out there.
Ooh,
if you're joining us, I'm just playing with my audio settings. I don't think my headphones are actually working.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if you're joining us and you're hearing any kind of wonky echoes, let us know.
Yes.
We're just going to hope that the sound is okay, and we will carry on talking about wedding gifts and favors. So the first thing to talk about is obviously the cost. I mean, we know that planning a wedding is expensive, and we know that having to buy gifts for more people seems to just add to the overall cost. But just think about it from the perspective of your family, your wedding party, and your guests, and know that they are also incurring some expenses when it comes to your wedding, whether they're family and they've, paid to raise you and feed you and clothe you and support you along this journey as you've met your significant other and gotten engaged. They may be footing a substantial portion of the wedding bill. If they're a wedding party member, they have probably traveled to be with you and to plan maybe your engagement party or a bachelor or bachelorette party. Maybe they've helped to plan a stag and doe or a hen and chickens or whatever you call it in your neck of the woods. They've probably put money out for their attire for the wedding day, for their hair and makeup, for gifts for you, for your showers, for your wedding. And all of those things tend to kind of add up a little bit. Your guests as well. I mean, maybe they've had to take a day off work. Maybe they've had to travel. Maybe they've had to put a hotel room on their bill for your wedding if it's out of town. So do know that everyone else has also incurred expenses, certainly not as many as you, but it is nice to show your appreciation, not only through your words and your gestures, but also with some kind of a gift. Now, I notice somebody just joined us here. So if you're catching us live, and don't mind just letting us know in the comments if the sound is okay. We are contemplating whether we're having tech issues or not.
I can't tell if it sounds like I'm standing in Whoville on top of the mountain, or if it's okay.
In any case, we're going to keep going if you're listening live and don't mind. Okay, Jillian, thank you so much. That's good. I really wish I was one of those humans who was blessed with, the technological magic touch. Oh, there's an echo for Jacqueline.
I'll raise my hand. Or I'll sit nicely.
I'm so sorry. Is it worse with your headphones, Jacqueline?
I think it was.
Okay. Well, I'll just do what I do best and keep talking then, I guess. It's hard to shut me up. And that's what I had my earbuds in before and my computer's not working with them for some reason right now. I'm going to try it again.
Thank you so much, though, Jillian. This was amazing.
Apologies for the... And then it's not recognizing my headphones, so... Okay, that's super frustrating.
Why don't you use my brilliant brain of ideas, and I can catch everybody when I have audio issues under control next Sunday. Then that way you can keep rocking and rolling without a remix.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mute every time Jacqueline's talking. So
we'll see if that works. Seems to be working. I don't hear an echo. Jillian, is that better?
Okay, perfect. Well, I will try to remember to mute every single time Jacqueline talks. I apologize. Oh, all I want for Christmas is some tech ability. In any case, So thank you for bearing with us through this. We'll carry on here. So when you're thinking about what to gift your guests, or your wedding party or your family, we have a handy dandy little acronym to help you remember. Jacqueline, do you want to fill us in on what exactly it means to keep your gifts simple?
Yes. So obviously, I love a good acronym, as does Amy. So earlier this week, we were kind of chatting about what it takes to make a good guest favor. So we came up with the acronym SIMPLE. So it stands for small, inclusive, memorable, practical, which again can be a little difficult with guest favors. Legal, which we'll dive into a little bit more a little bit later because it does depend on your venue and your region and all of the things when it comes to guest favors, as well as edible, which if you chuckle at the word edible, which is why we're going to dive into legal for some cases where wedding venues may not be 420 friendly or even just alcohol friendly. Not to say that you can't drink on premises, but because of a lot of people's liquor licenses, you're actually not able to bring in a lot of outside liquor, especially if you're trusting your friends not to crack open the mini wine bottles on their tables.
And it's actually not legal in Ontario to give a gift of alcohol, even if you're saying, oh, we're just going to hand it out as guests are leaving, because essentially what you're doing is giving them a traveler. So that's where legal plays into things. So let's talk a little bit about who you might need to give gifts to. And we basically have 4 categories. So for each of those categories, we're just going to talk about what to give, when to give it, and some things to think about. So the first would be gifts from you to your partner. Now, I know we had some feedback in our group when we posted about this earlier this week, and a couple of you said, I thought I was the gift. And that is very much the case. So the disclaimer with this one, when we're talking about gifting between you and your partner on the wedding day, is that it's absolutely not mandatory. None of this is mandatory. There are no wedding police. So you do what is best for you. You can say, hey, honey, I'm giving you the best, biggest party we're ever going to throw. And you can leave it at that.
Yeah.
But if you do choose to give each other gifts on the wedding day, things that we see commonly are gifts of, let's say, jewelry. So accessories that you could wear on the wedding day, whether that's necklace, earrings, bracelet, a watch. If it's engravable, having it engraved is something that's nice to do as well. So we certainly see that happening fairly often. You could also consider giving each other the gift of a special wedding day fragrance. I don't know about you, but every time I smell a certain smell, it takes me back to a certain time in my past. And that's something that's really nice to kind of incorporate into your wedding day. If you have a specific fragrance that you only wore on the wedding day, then every time you wear it in the future, you'll just have that memory, and it'll take you right back in time to that magical wedding day, which is really kind of cool. You could consider your honeymoon to be your gift to each other. And you know what? If you're not looking to spend any more money and buy jewelry or buy anything tangible, you could certainly also just write a really nice, meaningful letter for your partner to read on the day. And that kind of leads us into talking about when to give these gifts. If it's something tangible or if it's a letter, we would really advise you to do it probably in the morning of the wedding. You could do it in private beforehand if you wanted to, but if you're hoping to have that captured on film or in video, you'll want to do it the morning of the wedding. But the caveat there is, if you are super eloquent and you've written this beautiful, meaningful, thoughtful letter or card, maybe open it before the makeup application goes on. Just because if you're anything like me, it doesn't take anything but, a telephone commercial to get the waterworks going. So on the morning of the wedding, just be mindful of the hair and makeup, and also be mindful of the amount of time that it could take if you're capturing it on photo or film. Because we often see people remember late in the morning, oh, I have a gift to open from my partner. And then all of a sudden it takes half an hour to capture that either in photo or in film. And so that's something you'll want to build into your timeline if you're doing it. And the final thing in terms of things to think about with gifts from you to your partner is just talk about it before the wedding day. it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be over the top, but you don't want to be the partner that gifts something monumental, even if it's just a really meaningful, thoughtful letter, and then the other partner does nothing, because they're going to feel bad about it. So make sure that you talk about the size, the scope, the scale. If you're going to do anything for each other on the morning of the wedding, make sure you're on the same page.
Definitely.
And one other thing, actually, just to throw in, I was going to mention, I didn't put it on my list, but I actually gave my husband a little book that I bought. It was a fill in the blanks, basically, of prompts. It's called What I Love About You. And it had little spaces for me to draw pictures of the way he makes me feel and fill in little captions about my favorite memory and things like that. So again, it was like $14.99 or something, but it's a super cute little meaningful thing that you can certainly do, not quickly but easily, and then your partner has that memory for the rest of their life. So that takes care of you and your partner. What about parents? Jacqueline, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Now, gifting parents, I don't know about anybody when they look at their holiday list, to me is always difficult because anytime you ask them, they go, but you're the best gift in my life. Or they're on the terms of just save your money. Please just save your money. But like Amy had said, if anybody has financially contributed to your wedding, it's not that they're expecting you to gift the exact amount that they put into your day back to them in anything, but letting them know that you've at least given some thought to their contribution. And even if they haven't contributed, some thought into what they've done to shape both you and your partner, because we can't forget the fact that you have just gained an extra set of parents on this day. So similar to what Amy had mentioned, you can go the more itemized gift, which could be maybe matching cufflinks. So that way the groom and the dad can match, or maybe your brothers and everybody else can match. You could go for jewelry with your mom or with any other family members. That way it has a similar stone to what you're wearing, or it's just a nice little personal touch. Another thing that I've always liked couples thinking of is when you have your personal flowers, corsages, boutonnieres, anything like that, that can still be contributed to a gift. We know that those items aren't always cheap, that they can add up, especially if you have more than one parent, but those can still count as a gift as well, especially if you're going to add in the additional cost of maybe preserving it for them as well. So maybe you're getting your bouquet preserved, but you also want to preserve your mom's corsage for her, because we know my mom still has my prom corsage, I'm pretty sure. So I'm sure she'll save the one from her wedding as well. And from my wedding, I'm sure. Anything that's monogrammed as well is a really great idea. So any handkerchiefs, because again, if they're anything like Amy and I, chances are a good TLC commercial will make a family member cry. So it's safe to say your wedding day will also be one of those lovely, lovely moments. And similar to what Amy had said as well, just a very nice letter to both sets of parents can really go a long way. Thanking your in-laws for raising an incredible partner, thanking your parents for getting you literally to where you are that day is always a nice gesture as well. And then I think when it comes to, sorry to interrupt, Amy, as you just unmuted me, for when to give these gifts, it kind of depends on what your wedding weekend or your wedding week looks like. If you are having the traditional rehearsal dinner, rehearsal ceremony, it might be a nice time at that time, especially if you don't think you're going to be seeing these people prior to the ceremony. Because again, you might think you have time throughout dinner to pop down, give someone a small card. You won't. I promise. If you have Amy and me, we're going to be tapping you on the shoulder, letting you know, okay, we're going to get speeches going. We're going to be doing this. So you want to make sure you do allocate some time for some hugs to actually soak in that moment versus a here you go, I got to go. Make sure you're leaving some time. Another good option is if you are seeing your in-laws or your parents in the morning, gifting them beforehand, depending on their makeup application as well, you might want to hold off on making mom wear fake eyelashes and then blubber like a baby. That's not the karma that any parent needs on their wedding day or on their child's wedding day. Another thing that you could think about is gifting it just right before the ceremony, though. If it's more of a partner or a parent, that's not going to be too much of a crier and you do have a little quiet moment with them. So oftentimes before you walk down the aisle, if you are the partner that's doing that, your parents may be the last ones in the bridal suite with you. So taking some time to maybe kick out your wedding party about 5-10 minutes beforehand while whoever is in charge of them is getting them organized for the processional. That can be a nice moment to give them, like, again, that monogrammed handkerchief, moments like that. Other times, though, is you might have to wait until the next day. There might just be too much hustle and bustle in the moment, and it's going to be a nice moment right before you go and tear down that over coffee. You're going to share some gifts with them. There's really, like Amy had said, there's no right or wrong way to doing parent gifts, but taking the time to do them is definitely the right way if there were to be one.
And thinking about sometimes giving a gift post wedding in terms of remembering the day. A family album is something that a lot of photographers will include with their packages or be able to add on. And if you have the time and the ability and the budget and the desire, it's another really meaningful gift for your family if you personalize an album for you and your parents. And that way you can include some of those family photos that you're going to capture that are specific to you and your parents and your siblings, and make a really nice personal little album of those special moments that you shared with them on the wedding day. That, of course, is something that comes in much later by the time all of the photos are edited and the album is designed and printed and that kind of thing.
I love that idea.
We're just going to mention here to think about with everyone, if you're giving gifts to yourself and your partner or your wedding party or your family, do think about the storage of these items if you're gifting them on the wedding day itself. There are lots and lots and lots of options of things that you could gift, but just be mindful that if it's something that they're not going to wear on the wedding day, if it's not a piece of jewelry or if it's not a handkerchief they're going to tuck into their pocket, be mindful of what's going to happen with it during the chaos of the actual ceremony and the reception. If you don't have a bridal suite that's lockable or a car that's safe to store something in, just be careful of giving particularly valuable gifts that might get either lost or might be enticing for someone with sticky fingers to pick up if you don't have that private place or safe place to lock it up. And so something that most people give on the wedding day or at the rehearsal dinner would be gifts to their wedding party. Now, this is something that I think you maybe put a little bit more thought into than gifts to your parents or gifts to yourselves, but it's not something that just has one magical answer by any means. We've given a bunch of options and a fair few suggestions here, but ultimately, if we can bring it back to keeping it simple to that acronym, you want to choose something that is meaningful and memorable for your wedding party. We know that they have gone to a time and a financial expense to be with you on your wedding day. There's no way you're going to be able to give them a gift that equals that financial output or the amount of time that they've put in, but something that's personal to them and meaningful and memorable is going to really go a long way to showing your appreciation, more so than spending a whole lot of money on it.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of categories here. Jacqueline, do you want to fill us in on jewelry?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to gifting ideas for your parents, you might opt to give some jewelry options. That way everybody has the same earrings, the same necklace, the same bracelet for photos, but it can also be the same on the other scale. So maybe you want matching cufflinks for all of your guys, matching ties, matching handkerchiefs, things like that, where it's already going to be part of their apparel. And more often than not, it's easier to reuse a tie than it is to reuse a full suit. So it's pretty easy to gift those versus other things for male attire. As far as other jewelry options go, depending on, again, if you want to make sure that every single wedding party member gets the exact same thing, getting watches for every single wedding party member may be a little expensive, but opting maybe your best man gets a nice engraved watch because they're the ones standing up beside you. They're the ones writing, maybe they're your witness as well. And maybe if you're a maid of honor, you opt to go for a bit of a larger gift or a larger bracelet, not necessarily larger bracelet, but just a larger, more meaningful moment for that way you two can have that together. Another option for jewelry also to think about, like Amy said, is be aware of storage, because should any wedding party members have already really wanted to wear a particular type of jewelry and you did not pre-discuss that, don't worry, I've got your jewelry covered. Be aware that you don't necessarily want to be rocking their world the day of. So making sure that if you are making them wear the same jewelry, that they have somewhere safe to put their other one, because it could hold sentimental or just monetary value to them as well.
For sure. And there are lots of options that aren't jewelry related that could certainly be considered part of the attire of your wedding party on the day. We've seen lots of lovely clutches gifted to female members of the wedding party, and you could even pack those with a little bit of a wedding day survival kit, throw in some bobby pins and band-aids and Advil if needed, that kind of thing. If you're getting married in the winter or if it's likely to be cool at night, shawls or wraps are a great option for members of your wedding party who may be wearing, strapless dresses or something like that. Matching spare shoes or flat shoes for anyone who's going to be wearing heels for a large portion of the day, or even matching boots. We did a wedding last December where the bride, shout out to Janet, got everyone matching winter boots and laced them up with ribbons that matched the colors of the dresses. You may have seen us post that this past week on our socials. Beautiful little touches like that are not only great for future use. I mean, who doesn't need another pair of snow boots? Yay, Canada. Or a shawl that you can wear in the future. Flat shoes are always appreciated. Other items that could fall into this category would be sunglasses or socks for your guys. We see a lot of really cute socks being gifted. Gone are the days where we want everybody in black socks or gray socks. Everybody has the option now to choose some really fun socks that are, appropriate to the personality of the groomsmen or appropriate to the theme of the wedding or something that the groom enjoys. Along those same lines as Jacqueline mentioned, ties or suspenders or, bow ties, those kinds of things. Or your traditional flask, which is traditional for a reason, because let's be honest, they're useful.
Yes, they are extremely useful. I always joke that I don't need one because I know somewhere tucked up in our kitchen, there's got to be a groomsman flask somewhere. There always is, no matter what. And I can always find one. And it's a nice little oh yeah, they got married. Right. Hope they're doing well.
Absolutely. Now, you can also take the tactic of paying for some of those pre-wedding expenses for your wedding party. So you can pay for mani-pedis for your girls, or for, shave and a haircut for your guys, facials, massages, tans, contributions to their wedding attire, taking them out for a round of golf. Things like that certainly contribute towards the gifts for your wedding party also. And barring all of that, we certainly see a lot of couples who like to do really unique things that are personal to and individualized for each member of the party. So you spend the same generic amount of money on everyone, but you really personalize a gift. And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. You can go out shopping and curate things yourself. You can put together little boxes, or you can use a service like locally here. We have Gifty. Shout out to Katie, who curates wonderful, wonderful gift boxes that are an excellent way to put together some items that are personalized to the likes and dislikes of your wedding party. So lots and lots and lots of options here. We just advise you to think about, again, storage, coming back to that one. And so if you're giving something that's not necessarily going to be used on the wedding day, you might contemplate giving it to them the week before the wedding, or perhaps at the rehearsal dinner, just so that they're not dealing with things that they have no place to store. Or, of course, if you're giving your bridesmaids personalized robes, let's say, they're going to want them for the morning of getting ready. So perhaps giving them at the rehearsal dinner would be helpful. If you're giving the same gift to everyone, certainly you can do it en masse with everyone gathered together. But as Jacqueline was mentioning before, maybe if you've got an extra special little gift for certain members of the party, you might want to do it privately so that nobody is getting gift envy as they're watching everyone else open up their treasures. If you are giving your gifts the morning of, it's a really great opportunity, depending on what it is, to get some detail shots. So if you've got nicely wrapped boxes that are all done up with a pretty bow, it's a great photo opportunity. If you've got details like jewelry that could all be taken photos of with your jewelry and your shoes, that's a great memory of the day as well. So if you're gifting on the morning of, thinking about making time for those photos. And then also thinking about letting your photographer know what you want photographed. If they don't know that there's this really cute little gift that all of the girls or all of the guys are getting, they're not going to want, they're not going to think to ask to find it. So make sure that you've talked to your photographer through what you've got. And just ultimately, the final caveat here is right from the get-go, make sure that this is in the budget. It's a line that when we do our budget meetings with our full planning couples, always kind of surprises them. They say, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. Or if they have thought about it, perhaps they hadn't thought to include it in the budget. So do make sure that all of this goes into your budget right from the get-go.
And it's definitely one of those to keep in mind if you have done the large, like, bridesmaid proposal boxes or groomsmen proposal boxes, because all of those do add up. They are incredibly fun and they are so special to be gifted. But like Amy said, if you've got a wedding party of upwards of 8 humans on each side, it can really, really, really blow the budget out of the water very quickly.
And something else that can blow the budget is the guest favor. So again, we find that most of our couples have thought of this, may not have included it in the budget, or may not have necessarily allocated enough money in the budget. We want to bring it back to that acronym again, keep it simple, but ultimately it's not mandatory. I mean, never ever have I seen a guest at a wedding walk out and say, oh, I'm so glad I came. I have this personalized photo frame that's going to, make the rest of my life meaningful.
Thank gosh.
It's probably not something that a guest will miss if you choose to just forego the guest favors. If you do decide to do them, however, keep them simple. Go back to that acronym. Make sure that they are small, inclusive, memorable, practical, legal, and maybe edible. We generally find that things that guests appreciate the most are things that are useful or edible. So let's talk a little bit about how to keep your favors simple, Jack.
Yes. So making sure that your guest favors aren't going to take too much of your own time. I think sometimes the DIY aspect can take over. So bring it back down to just what is a nice and simple, easy to put out. Nothing that's going to be over the top for your day of coordinator or for your decorator to have to worry about. So that's where having an idea of something that's just small, like Amy had said, inclusive, memorable, all of those things comes down to. But also what it comes down to as well is what resonates with the two of you. So maybe the simplest idea for the two of you, because you have massive green thumbs and you're known for your garden. So of course you're going to put out plant seeds for all of your guests to have, because that is the simplest idea for the two of you. It's not to say that you have to go with the first one that comes to your head, but more often than not, it's not a bad idea to go with the first guest favor, because sometimes you go through the Pinterest boards and they get complicated, they get messy, and they get expensive.
And I love that idea of keeping it personal to you as a couple. So if you are foodies, then it's natural to gift something that is enjoyed by the two of you that can also be enjoyed by your guests. So things like olive oil or oil and vinegar pairings, fresh herbs, pastries, chocolates are always a big, big hit. I just caution you, if you're having a tent wedding or a wedding in a venue that's not air conditioned in the middle of the summer, you're doing a chocolate favor. Don't put them out. Don't have them put out by your coordinator or whoever is in charge of that until pretty close to the time when guests are going to be seated. We see spice blends being popular. Honey and jams and preserves are always a good option. A customized tea blend or a coffee roast that you enjoy is something that's likely to be enjoyed by your guests as well. So edible favors are always a big hit. If you're not a foodie, if you're not inclined to create your own personal spice blend, like Jacqueline said, maybe you have a green thumb and you're going to do seed packets. Or one that I particularly love is saplings, and that doesn't have to necessarily even be a guest favor. I've done small trees as memorials as well, and so a tree in memory of Uncle Doug or in memory of Dad that then can get taken home by one of those family members and planted afterwards. So saplings are a great option. We've also done potted plants as centerpieces that then double as favors. So everybody can take a potted plant at the end of the night, which is a great way to make a beautiful display that you need for decor anyway, but then it also doubles as a guest favor. Some playful favor ideas if you happen to be a kid at heart. What about doing Kinder eggs? Sorry, US viewers.
Yeah. That's where the legal comes in.
Candy bars or poppers, especially if your wedding is happening near the holidays. There are lots of fun options. I actually did a wedding a number of years ago where the centerpieces, again, we love a good double whammy on your decor and your favor. We had centerpieces that were tiered trays of candy, just the candy that the guests or that the couples loved that the guests could then snack on prior to dinner, which, may have spoiled their appetite. But it was a really cute thing that was really just very personal to the couple. If you are crafty, there are lots of DIY things that you can do. Now, the caveat is if you are crafty.
Yes.
If you are not crafty, it's probably not the time to try to get crafty in the 2 weeks before your wedding when you're like, okay, I have 120 little tiny sachets to put together and I'm going to put everyone's individual name on them with my Cricut and it's going to be their place card and their favor. And then all of a sudden your head explodes because that's not something that you're actually inclined to do. So be mindful with the DIY. If you've never made homemade candles, probably committing to make 300 of them for guest favors is not the ideal option. And the other thing, not that it's illegal, but be mindful of what your venue allows. I actually had a venue once take all of the candle favors off of the table and lock them up because it was not permitted at the venue to burn open flame. And so the couple was devastated because they set them up the night before the wedding and then they had been removed the day of and nobody knew where they had gone. And it was the venue being mindful of their rules, but maybe not handling it in the best way. So if you're doing candles or something like that, just double check with your venue. Homemade soaps, or again, we talked about homemade preserves, homemade wine, again, coming back to what's legal. So just whether you're doing something homemade or whether you're doing something that has been purchased, just make sure that it's going to be okay with your venue.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline, where can we put these favors in terms of display?
Yeah. So there's a couple of options. And again, we say it all the time, there's no wedding police. So if you decide to not go with wedding favors, but maybe you've put that money forth to a donation to a charity that speaks really well to you too, having that printed out on your ceremony programs or on your, even just having that little keepsake on your place cards, that way guests recognize like, oh, wow, they've taken the time, they donated to X, or maybe they've put forth that money somewhere else. Even if you leave a little keepsake saying we've foregone guest favors, thanks so much for your contribution to our honeymoon, anything like that is still fair game. It can go right on your stationery. The other options that you could do, like Amy had said, is sometimes if you are doing the homemade candle route, and as long as it's permitted by your venue, you could do kind of a station setup of all of your guest favors. So instead of having them individually packaged sitting on napkins, which is more commonly done, you might have a massive display of all of these custom little candy bags and everyone can choose which one they want. Or you could choose to have that as almost an escort card. So maybe the name of your guest is right on the guest favor itself, but it also tells them their table number. So then that way, like Amy said, it's a double whammy. You're not spending the additional money on a seating chart because it's going to be right on their guest favor. Again, more commonly what we see though, is it's sitting right beautifully placed on the napkin or on a side plate. With that in mind, you always want to make sure, like Amy had mentioned, if it is the summertime and you are thinking of chocolates, oils, anything that could kind of change its temperament based on the heat, you want to be mindful of that because there is nothing I won't say the most unappetizing thing in the world is a melted piece of chocolate on a napkin, but it does not set the appetite much for a 3-course meal when I'm looking at a brown mess on a white napkin.
And that brown mess is something we want to avoid, because I do like to think of finding favors that are useful and personal and memorable, but that also contribute to the decor. So I do love the idea of creating a really beautiful display. I'm thinking of a wedding we did a couple of years ago where they had a vintage potter's bench, and they had individually planted many different kinds of succulents. And so they had them displayed on this potter's bench in really cool old metal containers. So they had gone thrift store shopping, and they had different vases and bowls and things. And it made a really interesting visual display. And then the guests were able to go and take one. I've seen favors displayed on, rustic old ladders made with shelves made out of them by putting 2 boards in between ladders. So it can be a really nice way to add a visual element. It's also, if you're putting them on your tables, a nice way to fill some space where if you don't have a charger plate, or if your plates aren't set prior to the meal, if you're doing a plated meal or if you're doing a buffet, you won't have plates on the table. So it is a nice way to fill up some space in the center of that place setting. In terms of places to shop, we would always encourage you, if possible, to try to shop local. We do want to support our friends in the small businesses in our town to help them, stay afloat during this challenging time. And there are so many local vendors that do really cute handmade things, or local honeys, or maple syrup, or preserves, or jams, or that kind of thing that your guests will love. It's also a really great way to, if you're having a destination wedding, to feature something that's local to that destination. Or if you have a lot of guests coming in from overseas or from out of town, and there's something that your area is really known for, it's a great way to feature that and to showcase that, or to, to showcase something that's important to you and your partner. So definitely have fun with it if you're doing favors, but know that if you're not doing favors, realistically, nobody's going to call you on it. Nobody's going to worry about it. It's not like your guests are going to be disappointed because there's no favor on their plate when they get to your wedding.
Yes. And as Amy had mentioned, with shopping local, we are coming into the beautiful season of all of these incredible holiday markets. So although we want to support local, you also have to recognize that some businesses will need a bit of notice to accommodate for any orders that might be over 50 to 100 people, especially as we're getting into our larger guest counts, depending on what next year looks like. So go around to those Christmas markets, get some business cards, start the conversation, because they might not normally do bulk orders, but if they're given enough notice, especially after the couple of years we've had, they could pivot for you. You never know.
And it's a wonderful time of year to be just looking for leads. Like Jacqueline's mentioning, you can go to the local markets and find out what you might want to do, and a vendor that can do it in June when your wedding is happening. Or it could also be a great time with Bright Friday shopping coming up to save some money and buy something that is not going to go bad. Don't buy something that's perishable and try to save it for 6 months. But we're seeing all kinds of Bright Friday deals and Cyber Week deals that you might be able to take advantage of. So ultimately, gift giving shouldn't be something that you have to do and that you feel is tedious and that you feel is just one more thing that is mandatory. We're hoping that it's something that you get excited about, because it's a way for you to show your love and appreciation to those people who've given you the love and appreciation of raising you and being in your wedding party and attending your wedding. So it's a way to demonstrate gratitude, which kind of has been our theme for the last month, talking about showing people that they matter and that you love them and that you appreciate them. So as always, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have questions and you're catching us on the replay, send us a message, send us a comment, or give us an email, amy@unmistakably.you.com or jacqueline@unmistakably.you.com. We thank you as always for being here and for joining in the conversation every week. And we're super excited next week for a very special little guest to be popping in on our live. So This is something new, a new guest that's never been on before. Maybe coming from a long distance away, somewhere in the north, perhaps.
A little chilly, perhaps.
So join us next week, same time, same place. We'll see you Sunday at 1 to meet our new special guest. And we hope that you have a wonderful week and enjoy your gift shopping.